All right, welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. Time once again for us to look at issues, current affairs issues making the rounds across the globe, and of course, right here in Nigeria. We'll be looking at the EU ministers who are converging in Brussels to take a look at what's playing out in Syria, Belarus, and other countries, and also to take a stand against Russia, where they are looking at adopting the 15th round of sanctions which they intend to impose on Russia for the invasion of Ukraine. So we'll be looking at that keenly, what their decision is going to be at the end of the day when the EU ministers meet in Brussels, Belgium. We'll also be looking at some issues making the rounds in Nigeria as regards the fact that the House of Representatives have decided that there's going to be a special court to ensure that funds and loans gotten by the federal government is paid into a special court, to a special account, to ensure that there will be transparency and accountability rather than put IJR funds alongside funds gotten from the World Bank. So we'll be looking at the implication of that. We'll also be taking to the army, where the House of Representatives have also summoned the army to explain why there was this, arrest and detention of community elders that has led to the death of one or two of them. We'll be looking at that, killing that and other issues is what we'll be looking at on today's edition of the program, The Desk. When I return from this break, I'll be introducing my guests who will be helping us look at all these issues making their rounds as we look at key issues across the globe. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. It's now time for us to hit that discuss button as we look at issues making the rounds across the globe. Just to let you know that we're beginning from the EU, where the EU ministers are set to adopt a 15th round of new sanctions on Russia. The European Union foreign ministers plan to meet in Brussels to discuss recent developments in Syria, Georgia, Ukraine, and the Middle East, as well as the political situation in Belarus. Ministers are set to adopt the 15th round of new sanctions on Russia since its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, targeting the Kremlin shadow fleet of oil tankers. Ukraine Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha is expected to join his EU counterparts via video conference to give an update on the situation on the battlefield as talks about an EU involvement in a potential peacekeeping mission grow louder. Possible sanctions on Georgian government are also on the table after European demonstrations were answered with police violence and mass arrest. The outcome of the presidential elections will also be discussed as potential actions could include imposition of EU travel bans on those responsible for the recent event and freezing of assets held in the EU. All right, my guests, I'll be having two guests joining me in the studio. One of them was already in the studio. I've got Dr. Aisha Shaibu, who is a political analyst who will be joining, who is already in the studio, and will be joined via Zoom by Gabriel Obi, who is also a public affairs analyst, who join us via Zoom to add his voice to the many conversations we're going to be having this evening. Thank you for joining me on the desk.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's just begin with what's playing out the EU, talking about the European Union ministers meeting to decide what sanctions should be the 15th round of sanctions against Russia for invading Ukraine. And we're also looking at we're going to discuss about other issues making the rounds in Syria, the recent war in Syria, and we've got Georgia also in the midst. But looking at EU ministers, the fact that now they are looking at putting sanctions, the 15th round of sanctions on Russia because of that invasion. Do you think the other sanctions they have put before now has yielded any positive impacts so far?
Well, good evening, viewers. As we can see, it is a fight of the titans. The Russian has been able to prove that it is not a pushover. So far, so good. Despite the sanctions, the Russian government has maintained their stand on what they believe is the right course. History will have it that President Putin is not someone you can just run over with threats, either economic threats or ties. So far so good. Let us look at the outcome of the meeting. What other pressing sanction are they coming up with? Because they seems to have exhausted almost all they have in their kitting. But let's see what is the trump card. And after the meeting on Monday, we'll be able to ascertain elaborately if Russian is going to take a bow or stand, beat his chest to say, I am equal to the task.
Okay, the fact that we know that in January we're going to have the president-elect of the U.S., Donald Trump, come into the picture fully by next year. Do you think Russia might be holding up knowing that once Donald Trump is is sworn in as president because he has a good relationship with Trump, he might be able to, peace might be on the horizon, so he would not really want to give up for now?
If we take a critical look at the manifesto of President-elect Donald Trump, this was one of his promises, and like we have always agreed, he, to a very large extent, keep to his campaign promises. Yeah. So he has already promised that he's going to broker peace. There's going to be a truce, and I seriously believe that he's going to have something on the table, something in the offing. So if President Putin is able to hold on to, generally just by the corner, in the next 1 month thereabout, Donald Trump will be inaugurated. So I want to strongly believe that President Putin will be holding on despite all the pressure that is going to be mounted coming from the meeting of Monday. He will be able to look at the pros and the cons of his action pending when President Trump is fully back in office.
All right, let's move out from that talking point while we're still waiting for Gabriel Obi to join us via Zoom so that we can get his own perspective to that first talking point. Moving on to other issues making the rounds, let's come back to Nigeria, where the issue has to do with the defense headquarters has again refuted claims that the French military is planning to establish a base in Nigeria. A human rights activist, Madi Shehu, in a post on Saturday criticized the government of denying the development. In a video accompanied post, Shehu claimed that some French military officers had arrived in Borno State as part of the process to set up the base. The post partly read last week that the Chief of Defense Staff denied any plan to establish a French military base in Nigeria. Reacting to, in a statement, Monday, the Director of Defense Media Operation, Major General Edward Buba, dismissed the claim as fake, mischievous. It would be recalled that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, recently addressed this matter in various media forums where he debunked such news. But we remember that just recently the president traveled to France. In that trip, it also led to even the Nigerian football team, the female team, played the French football team as part of the building of strengthening of ties between France and Nigeria. And a lot of people have said since the exit of France from Niger, Mali, those French-speaking countries, they're trying to see how they can get inroads to Nigeria. And with Shehu saying they did see French officers in Borno State, do you think the federal government, who do we believe, especially with the fact that Nigeria and France recently are trying to, get closer?
I think I read somewhere where it was established that President Tinubu has a personal relationship with the France president. Yes. And springing from that perspective, you expect that anything can happen. But coming to the issue of
setting up a military
base, French military base, in quotes, in Nigeria, I don't know if Nigeria is going to go through a second colonialism. I don't know what they have cooking, but time is the only thing that will avail us the real situation of things. Usually, the military, in almost everything about the military, you see restricted, until they have cooked up whatever it is they have in mind, and it is finally due to serve. You wouldn't know if what we are hearing is a mere speculation or the real deal. Reason why I said time will be able to prove. And if this story is going to be true, then it is quite unfortunate. Because
why did you say that?
Quite unfortunate because over time, in recent years, we've seen the U.S. military coming for surveillance within the same northeast zone. We've seen the Chadian military, and to think that we are still that Nigeria army that go outside to fight in wars and come back triumphant. Now we have internal crisis we cannot even manage for, I think it has been going on for well over 6-7 years, if it is not more than the Boko Haram crisis. Despite all the troops that have been deployed there, despite all the international assistance, despite everything, we seem to be losing it as a nation. And that brings the question, what is really going on with us. Why are we not able to secure our own internal peace?
Do you think some have said it's because it looks like the military making some financial gains from this war? That's why they seem not to want it to end. Because
well, I might not be able to say for a fact if that is true, but sometimes when the hand of the monkey lasts longer in the pot of soup, it becomes the hand of a human being.
All right, well said there. All right, on that note, let's welcome our second guest, Gabriel Obi, who is joining us via Zoom. Gabriel Obi, thank you for joining us on the desk.
Clearly? Can you hear me? Thank you for having me. I'm online.
Obi, can you hear me?
Very loud and clear.
All right, while we're trying to establish audio contact with Gabriel Obi, who is joining us via Zoom to get his take on some of the issues we've looked at. Just as before we leave that talking point completely, would you say this recent set of service chiefs have done enough to prove that they deserve to keep staying on in the job? Because we say, but the last administration, there was change of service chiefs like twice when Nigerians felt they were not delivering the goods.
Change is constant, depending on the yardstick at which they are using to measure their performance. Within the military circle, they should be able to have a record of what is expected of them, and the scorecard as well. I might not be able to say much again because coming from my background, I have a limit to what I can say. But notwithstanding, the Nigerian military has a lot to offer. Nigerians have serious expectations from them. And again, it will be quite unfortunate if they fail in that aspect.
Will it be because they want to fail, or is it sabotage, or they just don't have enough?
It is all encompassing. It could be sabotage, which is something we are all aware of. It is part of the Nigerian system to always sabotage ourselves. Again, inefficiency of personnel could be another attribute. So when you want to look at this whole thing, it is not something you tag or pin to a particular point. It is a circle, and until the various circles are being put on their toes, then I don't think we'll be able to have a headway.
All right, well said there. All right, Gabriel Obi, thank you for joining us on the desk.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I've got in the live studios here Dr. Aisha Shaibu, who is joining us in the conversation. My question to you, looking at the first talking point where the EU ministers are meeting to take a decision on whether to impose the 15th round of sanctions on Russia as regards the invasion of Ukraine, and also the discussion they're going to have as regards what's happening in Syria and Belarus, where they intend to put sanctions, EU travel bans, and also freezing of assets on those different governments. Do you think Russia, the EU ministers, can further hurt Russia or make Vladimir Putin withdraw his troops?
All right, thank you so much for having me, and good evening to the viewers and to the woman in the studio. Well, we've had several sanctions. Like you said, this is going to be the 15th sanction, and it hasn't really hurt the economy of Russia. But, you can never say what these sanctions may offer. But I want to say that
Yeah, I think we're having some slight audio hitch there. All right, we hope we'll be able to re-establish contact with him to get his perspective from there. Okay, let's move on to other issues of interest. We're looking at the 2025 budget, where 13 trillion deficit is to be financed through borrowing. Yes, that's the big talking point there, because the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister for the Economy, Wole Edun, on Monday said that 13 trillion naira deficit in the 48 trillion naira 2025 budget would be financed through borrowing. The minister said this while briefing State House correspondent after the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja. The total projected revenue for 2025 is 34.8 trillion naira, out of which the expenditure is projected at 47.9 trillion naira. The big question a lot of people are asking is, from this budget we are having, projected budget of 48 here saying 47.9 trillion. We already know there's a deficit of 13 trillion. They're saying it's going to be financed through borrowing. Are you worried that the borrowing seems to be endless, and it seems like this government is so comfortable doing the borrowing game?
Well, it calls for a very serious worry. Let us look at what is happening to the various policies of this present government. So far, so good. The first thing the president did upon assumption of office is to remove the fuel subsidy. And the question now is, what happened to the subsidy that has been removed for over 1 year now?
Okay, the money is
that is what they were trying to save by removing the subsidy. Where does it go to? How far have they been able to revitalize the system with that money that has been removed from the subsidy, to the extent that we will have to borrow money to finance the budget, part of the budget? It calls for worry. And since assumption of office, we could see that there have been series of borrowing so far. So yet we could afford to renovate the vice president's office with trillions. I can't get the exact figure. We could afford to buy SUV vehicles in trillions. We could
presidential jets.
To me, I think that we have some misplaced priority as far as the discharge of the policies are concerned. If we have serious issues that needed to be tackled, it should be an issue of priority. And the priority, as far as every reasonable government is concerned, is to meet the needs, the yearnings of each citizen. So there are some extravagant spending that does not impact on the society, yet when it comes to society, they are borrowing. It means we've been mortgaged as citizens of this country. Our generations yet unborn are being mortgaged. Explicitly put, that is what it means. It means that the first 4 years of this president, if he's going to be for or come back for the second tenure, it means we are going to experience more borrowing, where even the country will be mortgaged. In that case, it means that our crude revenue is we are going to forecast into the future, where a particular amount of that revenue coming will be servicing the debt, then leaving the system to wallow in abject poverty. It means what we are seeing now is the tip of the iceberg. More is yet to come.
Okay, in terms of the issue that we're looking at, this borrowing, it's not just external but also internal. Do you think that it's going to cost more? Though you've already said yes, more hardship, but the fact that this international financial institutions are willing to still borrow more, do you think it's because it's playing to their own advantage?
Of course. So a personal interest in everything they do. They are not borrowing money because they love you as a nation. They are borrowing money because of the stake they want to have in your system. If we look back to Abacha regime, he said something I could not forget. He said if you allow borrowing to continue, commercialization, privatization, then invariably you are allowing external forces to have a say in your policies as a government, as a nation. Sure. So by giving room for these loans to be given, it means you at a point you become a pawn that they can choose to play whichever direction they so desire. And that is one thing we should be wary of. As you can see, right now, if you take a critical look, you will see that already we don't have a say as a nation. There are external forces manipulating, directing on what we ought to do as a nation. And that is not going to yield positive results in the long run. It is going to be something that generations yet unborn will come and inherit as a problem. So we should be responsible enough to use the natural resources God has given to us as a nation to better the lives of the citizens.
All right, in case you're just joining us, you're watching The Desk. We'll go for a very quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be looking at other issues, as the House of Representatives is saying they need special accounts for the federal government loans we've been taking, and I'll be looking at what this means and the implication of having a special account for the federal government. It means they are ready for more borrowing, and also they say this would help accountability when we have special accounts for the funds that the federal government intends to borrow and has been borrowing. Stay with us after this break.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Welcome back from the break. It's still The Desk, and we're looking at issues from global perspective, subnational and national level. So we rejoined. We've got the man who will want to get his take as regards some of the talking points. We've got Gabriel Obi, who is joining us already via Zoom to give us his take as regards what's playing out. The EU ministers who are meeting in Brussels to discuss sanctions against Vladimir Putin, if it's going to make any headway, and before we look at other issues. All right, Gabriel, thank you for rejoining us on the desk.
Thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me now.
Very clear. So let's go ahead. Your take as regards the European Union ministers who are meeting to propose the 15th round of sanctions on Russia. Do you think this is going to make any difference to the invasion of Ukraine, or you think Putin might decide to hold on, knowing fully well that come January, Donald Trump, his friend, would have been sworn into, into office?
Thank you so much. I think Putin will take the second option, to hold on, because he knows that his friend is coming to office in the next 1 month. As you know, the sanctions have not only hurt the economy of Russia. We've had 14, and if after 14 sanctions, Russia is still soldiering on, then this 15th sanction will have no effect on the economy. So I believe Putin will play the delay tactics. So another 1 month on board, because Donald Trump is his friend, and Donald Trump has promised in his campaign to broker peace. So I believe Putin will do the waiting game till January 20th, when Donald Trump will come on air. So I believe the sanction will have no effect on the economy whatsoever, because they have prosecuted the war for over a year plus, and yet they are still soldering on. So the EU sanction is dead on arrival.
That said, the federal government would need a special court for the issue of the loans and grants gotten from international financial institutions, as a way of ensuring that there's accountability and also transparency in the usage of these funds. Do you support the move of the House of Representatives that they should alter the Constitution and ensure that there's special accounts for loans taken by the federal government?
Yes, I think it's a brilliant idea, because we have had situations in the past where loans obtained are being relooted. Loans obtained, even loots from Abacha loots that were returned back, cannot be accounted for, because they say they have put it in the financial account, and the financial account is omnibus. So it's important that we have an account for loans, so we can track expenditure or where these loans are being used for. Because if you remember the last administration, we kept collecting loans for Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Abuja-Kaduna, Kano Expressway. But we can't account, up till now, the project has yet to be completed. The second Niger Bridge, you kept collecting loans over and over again for these same 3 major projects. Yet, only the second Niger Bridge has been opened. The Ibadan Lagos Highway has still been completed. The Abuja Kano Highway is still been completed. So if this account is open, and with the National Assembly having the power of oversight, can easily track where these monies are being spent, what went for what. So I believe it's a brilliant idea. I support the
that call by the House of Representatives, saying that it's going to improve accountability, and also instead of having the same money where you have the IGR, let's just have a special court.
No, it is a good idea to give a clear distinction on what the IGR is and the expenditure, then what the loans, the loan amount, and the disbursement as well. You see, sometimes I always say it, that it's not like we don't know what to do as a country. We know what to do, but for one reason or the other, we choose to do things in a nihilist manner. Look at it. Up till now, just like Mr. Obi has said, there are incidences in the past where money cannot be accounted for. And the question now is, were those monies in a ghost account? Were ghosts managing or signatory to such accounts? where you cannot hold someone. Why do we have designation? It is because you are in charge. Whatever goes wrong in that office, you'll be answerable. But in Nigeria, we tend to do it the other way around. Reason why we hope and pray that even when they bring up this policy eventually, the story will not become worse compared to the past, because they always have a story to tell. I could remember some time ago that even snakes were swallowing millions.
True.
Yeah, we are Nigerians. It is what it is. And most times when you hear such bizarre stories, you begin to imagine, are we really humans? Are we okay? Why would someone come and tell you snakes swallow money and nobody is questioning how? Even sometimes when a snake swallows something big, it will remain there, it can no longer move. Yet this snake was able to swallow as much as the figure we talked about at that time, yet crawl away peacefully without any inhibition. So let us look at it that eventually when this bill or this suggestion by the House of Reps comes to fruition, we will have a positive result from it.
But don't you think it's not about having a special account? Because before these monies are moved, the anti-graft agencies, the banks, they are aware. There's this threshold, that when you reach this threshold, before such large amount is moved, you're supposed to inform the CBN, alert relevant authorities before those monies are moved. Don't you think those institutions should also be called to question? Because if they cannot raise the red flag, what's the guarantee that...
We have different institutions of government put in place to checkmate activities of public office holders. But like we have just established here, sometimes we go south. Why? Because we are Nigerians. We have our way of doing things. In Nigerian system, we always prove the book theory wrong, because we don't go by the book. All right. So again, we should give them that benefit of the doubt that maybe God is trying to sway our way positively for positive results. We should give them that benefit of the doubt, but not that we are expectant that things will go differently, except if they choose to manage the situation the way they ought to have managed. Otherwise, we might still come here at a point in future to say, we thought this will give us results, but unfortunately it is giving us the worst results. So Nigerians are wise, Nigerians are exposed, Nigerians are intelligent. Yet the way and manner we run government or the governance is being handled is something that beats our imagination most of the times. So let's give the House of Assembly the benefit of the doubt that those in charge, or they might bring up a commission that will handle, or a department under the Ministry of Finance that will handle loan department, IGR department, and put either a director or something there. But let us just believe that due diligence will be done.
All right, as we begin to wrap up, just a quick one to let you know the next talking point. We're looking at federal government loans, as the World Bank is set to decide on 3 major loan projects for Nigeria in 2025, totaling $1.65 billion as part of efforts to address critical developmental challenges in the country. The loans currently in the pipeline will focus on internally displaced persons, education, and nutrition enhancement. According to the information obtained from the World Bank website, the loans are designed to support Nigeria's social and economic recovery, particularly in vulnerable sectors. Looking at this amount of loan, 3 loans, one of them for the displaced persons vulnerable, and we're looking at $1.65 billion. Has the government shown that they really want to help get this internally displaced persons back to their home state with the policies they've held in the past. But let me see if Obi, are you still there with us?
I'm here.
Gabriel Obi.
Right here. Loud and clear.
Yeah, the question is to you. Do you think the federal government has shown the true willingness to help the vulnerable population in the country, especially the internally displaced persons? Because we're seeing that $1.65 billion is being earmarked by the World Bank to help Nigeria, rehabilitate internally displaced persons in the country and vulnerable groups. Do you think these monies would be used wisely?
Well, in the past, the federal government has not shown sincerity in the disbursement of this fund. So right now, I'm afraid that it will not go the way it has been planned. We have IDPs across the countries. You have them in Abuja, you have them in Benue State, you have them in Plateau State, you have them in Cross River, in Borno, over these years. And we have not seen any action that is taken by the federal government. It's only the state governments that have been doing their best. The federal government just goes on with some bags of rice and just share. That's all. Is that what the loan was made to cater for? So I'm afraid, because I cannot really vouch for the federal government in this case, because in the past they haven't shown sincerity that they can actually manage these loans and disburse them to where it is actually needed. So I don't know if it's a 50-50 game. I don't know if this administration can do better, because
your expectations. Because this is solely for the internally displaced persons, vulnerable groups, and we've got education, we've got a nutrition enhancement. The last time the humanitarian ministry.
Let me interject at this point. Do you realize that virtually Nigerians are vulnerable?
Okay, that's an interesting take.
Oh yeah? Virtually all Nigerians are vulnerable at the moment, because yes, there are some that are in IDP camps. Yet there are some that are in their various homes still vulnerable. So there are so many people at home who could not send their children to school. And when you narrow it down to what this particular loan is meant for, you weep for Nigeria. We have an IDP camp in FCT. If you take a visit, a tour to that place, you could see for yourself that it is a very sad development. Sad development in the sense that we have some NGOs, some organizations that go there to give arms to support. And each time I am opportune to get there, I always shed tears. Someone is being in this deplorable state in his or her own country. In FCT, for that matter, the federal capital of Nigeria, it is quite unfortunate, to say the least. So if the federal government, the government of President Tinubu deem it fit this time around to change the narrative, then it will be a plus to him if he can actually secure this loan and channel it appropriately. Then again the question comes, how are we sure it is going to be a different ballgame? Because we already have an established way of doing things prior to this time. Like Mr. B said, we have several IDPs across the nation. And what has been the impact of government's presence in these camps? If we want to take the statistics of it, then we can say it is below expectation. So, again, when we secure loan, most at times, it does not go to the targeted destination. There is diversion here and there along the line, and this time around we pray for something positive. God help us.
All right, that's how we're going to close the wrap on today's edition. Time not our friend, and I want to say thank you to Gabriel Obi, who joined us via Zoom within a short notice to join us in the conversation. We want to say thank you very much for joining us, and we urge you to enjoy the rest of your day. And special thanks to Dr. Aisha Shaibu, who has done the yeoman's job taking us from the global scene to the national level, giving us perspective to the different talking points we looked at on today's edition. My name is Anthony Bomodi saying thank you for being part of the desk today. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be coming with other big stories and issues for discourse to give you a very balanced analysis as we go across the globe. Good evening.